Well, you don't get Fox Business? Imagine what you're missing. I can't think of going through life like that. But maybe some of you just didn't know. Hopefully you know now. Watch us. We're there, all over this. By the way, fair balance for the Democrats now. They have a battle on their hands, too. And they have this weird thing with superdelegates. First of all, let's show how the race stands there with pledged delegates. And there, Hillary Clinton has a pretty good lead, not an insurmountable lead, but throw in the superdelegates. These are party honchos, Democratic congressmen, senators, and the rest. And look how it mushrooms. Now, that's a big deal, right? Now, how does that affect things right now? And what about the race going forward? Let's ask former Seattle Mayor, big Bernie Sanders supporter, Michael McGinn. Mayor, good to have you.
Glad to be here.
You know, it is interesting, right, Mayor, when you look at the race without the superdelegates, it's doable for Bernie Sanders. If you take those superdelegates in, wow, it suddenly doesn't look doable. How do you feel about superdelegates?
Well, you know, I wrote an article locally in a blog called Crosscut, and I went to our caucus, and there were all these young kids there, super excited. It was their one chance to get engaged in the political process. And my view on the superdelegates is it feels to a lot of people like their choice for president or for their nominee is being taken away from them even before the race starts. And I think that's a problem for the Democratic Party when people feel that the outcome is predetermined and their vote might not count as much. So in our state, for example, 72% in the caucus went for Sanders, but all of the pledged superdelegates so far are for Clinton.
Now, that could change. It changed 8 years ago, as you know, Mayor, when Hillary Clinton had the lion's share of the superdelegates. Then Senator Obama emerged, started winning a lot of contests. I think by this time, those same superdelegates switched sides and went over to him. There's no sign of that happening for Bernie Sanders, your candidate, just yet. He's arguing that it could, and that if he racks up some wins, does well in California, it will. What do you think?
He'd have to do, excuse me, he'd have to do a lot better.
Yeah.
Because if Hillary Clinton's going in there with a lead, and it's going to be even harder for those superdelegates to switch. And let's not forget, you know, Bernie Sanders, he's trying to storm the castle. And a lot of these insiders, you know, they're the palace guard. They're the ones that are standing up there to, you know, try to get somebody who they feel is going to protect their party's interests as well as their community's interests.
Yeah, and a lot of you guys, that is Bernie Sanders supporters, aren't too keen on the palace guard. I think there was a survey out that a third of them, I think a third of 30% more to the point, if she were the nominee, wouldn't back her. Are you in that club?
No, I'm not in that club. And I think that a poll like that taken in the heat of the campaign isn't going to be that accurate, because people are focused right now on the differences between Clinton and Sanders. But when you get to the general election and you're really focusing on the difference between the Republican and the Democratic nominee, you know, people still have to make a choice. But it does speak to passion, and you've seen Clinton moving to try to grab some of the passion of the Sanders supporters.
But it's not working, right? It's not working. So a lot of those voters, but maybe voters like you, Mayor, could say, well, you know what? And I know obviously you don't want to do this and don't plan on doing this. If it's Hillary Clinton, they'll just sit on their hands and won't vote at all in November. What do you think of that?
Well, you know, again, I think most Sanders supporters will come back to the party, but I think there's a deeper problem in the party when you start getting a big chunk of the base feeling like they're not being represented in the process, or that the process is to some degree predetermined. You know, I think over on the Republican side it may be even worse, right, with you know, the feeling that the party elites now want to come in and throw open the convention. So I think the Republican Party has an even deeper problem with this right now about division.
They both seem like dysfunctional families to me, right? They both seem dysfunctional right now. I don't know who's more dysfunctional.
Yeah, I personally think the Republicans are a little further down that path, a lot further down that path than the Democrats. But I do think it's a problem, because these are young, passionate folks.
Donald Trump's getting a lot of those young, passionate voters, you know.
Well, you know, politics moves, and the parties have to move quick enough to keep up. And that's one of the problems with the superdelegates, is it can sometimes kind of cement the status quo rather than help move the party to the place it needs to go.
All right, Mayor, great having you. We'll see what happens.